Okay. What we're going to do is I want you to make that scatter plot. So on your graph paper, okay, I want you to draw that scatter plot. And let's see if we can do it together here. I think I have a point. Just to refresh your memory, age is X, Y is the grade. Okay? So X is the age, Y is the grade, and the horizontal axis then is going to be our independent variable, that's age. The vertical axis is going to be the grade, and what we're going to do is construct a scatter plot. And today we're going to work from the approach that we're going to look at the algebra of it. We're going to talk about slope, we're going to talk about the y-intercept, we're going to talk about writing an equation of a line. On our other data set, we use the graphing calculator, all right, so you could get an idea of how the trend line is calculated and formed using an electronic device. And today, then, we're going to go and do the opposite of that. We're going to, again, find a trend line, but we're going to do it by hand and doing our algebraic calculation of that. So I'm going to drag my points down here. Can someone tell me how to plot the first point? The first point is 7, 2. So how do I do that? Devin, can you help me?
Go up 7 on age, go grade level, go to
Okay, so we're going to plot our point. I'm going to drop it there. And it might need moved up just a little bit. Okay. So we're going to drag another point, 9, 3. Bring 9, 3 down. 9, 3. Okay. I'm going to do 8, 3. 8, 3. I'm going to do 12, 7. So over 12 and up 7.
much.
Okay. 10, 4. Good, buddy. All right, 11, 6. And 13, 7. Okay, so those are our points that we've plotted on the scatter plot. I want you to put this on your scatter plot. All right, please place this on your scatter plot. Okay. Now, what we're going to practice today, and I'm going to give you some notes towards, is how to basically construct a line, and then we're going to construct the line, the best fit or trend line to this data set. Let me ask you some questions though first. What kind of correlation do we have here? Strong or weak? Positive or negative? It is positive. All right. What about how? What's this? It is fairly strong. Look at how grouped the points are together. They're close together, not scattered everywhere. All right. If we have that big scattering, we know from our other experiments and studies that we have a weak correlation. So this is a fairly strong positive correlation. Now we have to draw a trend line, all right, to this data set. The calculator does it mathematically, and we shared that with you a little bit. It did the statistical calculations and actually fit that trend line to the data set. Here, you're going to have to use your eyeball, all right, and you're going to have to eye the data set to see that you can get half the points above, half the points below. All right, so what points do you want to choose to draw our line through so we have a line of best fit? All right. All right. Go ahead.
Between 7, 2 and 14, 8.
And the what? There's no 14. Maybe I made this point look a little too far away. There. Which one?
13, 7.
All right, she wants 13, 7 and 7, 2. So I'm going to take and put my line on there. I'm going to start from this one, and I'm going to draw to the last one. Okay. Now, the problem there with that, okay, how many points do I have above?
3.
And how many points do I have below?
0.
Well, I have 1. I have 1. So we kind of want to get it halfway between. So I'm going to suggest making it such that I'm going to grab this line. I'm going to roll it up just a little bit, so I get, now I've got it, it's better. It's still going through this point, and it's going through this point, okay, and I'll mark those. I'm going to call this the first point, so when I name it, I call it X1, Y1, indicating that it's the first point. Okay, would you guys please write that down? All right, the second point that I'm using is X2, Y2. Those little subscript numbers indicate if it's the first point or the second point, and that's all. All right, so this is my second point. All right, second point. All right. Now, when we go to calculate the trend line with the calculator, it constantly spit out a general form for a straight line. Does anybody remember what that was on your calculator? It said y equals what? Y equals ax plus b. Okay? It said that on our calculator each time we did a best fit line, a trend line. All right? And what we're going to do is we're going to analyze, well, what is A? What is B today? And we're going to practice. We'll have one problem to work on for homework after we're done here that you're going to apply your notes to. So I want you to take your notes, if at all possible, on this piece of graph paper. Okay, on this piece of graph paper, if it's at all possible. If you've already started on another piece, then you're going to have to go with that, but preferably on that piece. Okay, so A is the slope, guys, and we mentioned this. A is the slope, and when you're writing an equation of a line, that's going to be the first thing that you go and calculate is the slope. All right, now slope has a formula. All right, that formula for slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That is the slope formula, always and forever. All right, what is slope? Well, as you look at the scatter plot, the slope of the line, we talked about that, is the what? What do you call that? Slope is the, well, it indicates, it's part of the line of best fit, yes, but it indicates a slant or tilt or angle of the line. All right? And we calculate the slope from the first point and second point that we chose. But the bare minimum to draw a line, how many points are required to draw any straight line? 2. There are 2 points required to draw a straight line. All right? So, let's calculate our slope here. All right? So our first point, all right, was what? What was our first point? 7, 2 in that order. All right? Our second point, what was that from our table? Was the second point we used was 9, 9, 3. All right, so that was 9, 3. So now, to calculate my slope, I'll come back and I'll plug this in. So what is y2? Anyone? Y2 is 3. What's y1? Okay, now let's do the x's. What's x2? And what's x1? Okay. Let's calculate our slope. That's a simple calculation. 3 minus 2 is 9 minus 7 is, so our slope is 1/2. All right. So now at this point, all right, at this point I can come back, all right, and I can fill in part of the equation. Y equals 1/2 x plus, I still don't know what b is, so I have filled in at least though the slope. All right, and I'll circle that for you guys. I filled in what we just found, all right, out of our trend line, 1/2. Okay, so the next step, then we need to go find b. All right. So I'm going to transfer this over here. All right, y equals 1/2 x plus, now we have to find the b. All right, that's what we're finding there. We're finding b. All right, we're finding b. So you get to choose. Okay, we chose 2 points, but you get to choose one of the 2 points. So Tabitha, help me here. Which point do you want to choose? Do you want to choose the first point or do you want to choose the second point? She wants to choose the first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first point, 7, 2, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to plug it in for one of those variables. Okay, so the 2 is a what? 2 is it an x or a y? The 2 is a y, so I will replace the y with 2, all right? I will replace the x with what number is x here in this first point? 7 is, so I will put 7 in. And we're still trying to find b, obviously. Okay. So working this down, 2 is equal to half of 7. So I'm just going to write it like this. You guys have calculators. You can calculate that to help me out here. What is half of 7? Okay, that's 3.5. So I'm going to have 2 equals 3.5 plus b. All right, does anybody know what 3.5 plus something is 2? No? Okay, so let's just do an easy part. Let's undo the plus. What's the opposite of adding something? So I'm going to come over and subtract 3.5 from 2, and that's going to tell me what b is. Okay, so with some assistance there from you guys and your calculators, what's 2 minus 3.5?
1.5.
Well, now if you take 3.5 things from 2 things, what are you going to have? Is that going to be a positive number of things or a negative number of things? Yes. Negative 1.5. Okay. And then our last step is to write this equation out. Okay, so here's my final answer. It's going to be y equals 1/2 x minus 1.5. And that's my final answer. So I finalize it by writing. Okay. Now, this is the last step. The last step, then, or that's officially, we're done. Okay, we wrote the equation of a line. That's our trend line. Okay. You have one assignment. I want you to take the very first problem today that we did on our practice sheet. So I haven't collected that yet from you. Take that out. Record that table on your graph paper. On your graph paper. That's this paper. If you've got space somewhere, record that table. And I want you to make a scatter plot for the gallons bought versus dollars spent. So your next problem that you're going to do, all right, you're going to take and compare. All right, it's not going to be age this time. All right, we would cancel this out and we would put here the gallons. All right, gallons. Oops. Let's erase that off. You're going to make a little chart here for yourself on your graph paper, gallons, and then dollars spent. You're going to make a scatter plot, draw the trend line, and then come up with a line of best fit. The trend line itself, you're going to write that using these notes. Using these notes. Okay? So everybody get that down. All right, you need to use the first example. Get that written down from your paper because I'm going to collect your papers from you today. I'm going to collect your papers. All right, that little paper you had for me, those 2 questions right here, get that out. Write that down because I'm going to collect that. All right, so get it written down on your graph paper so you can do your one problem from homework. All right, write that down. Okay, so we're going to summarize what we did. All right, our first step was to calculate what? After we drew the scatter plot, our first step was to draw the slope. All right, or calculate it. Once we calculated the slope using the slope formula, then we went on to find what? Okay, so our second step was to find B. So I'm just summarizing what we did. All right? So to find B, we chose a point, and we plugged it in, right? And we calculated that. And then what was the last step? 3. The last step then was to write the equation out of our trend line. To write out the trend line equation. So it's 3 steps. Find the slope. Find the y-intercept B. Calculate what B is after you've chosen a point to plug in. And then the final step was to rewrite the trend line with the slope and B in it. All right, that ends our lesson.